Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another sunny day in lockdown. We're really excited about this one. We've got our latest Ask Me Anything series with Ross Stirling, who is the founder and creative director of Studio Juice. He's the co-founder of Omeara Music Venue, one of my favorites, and he's an adventure challenger, which is a term I had to look up. And effectively means he's a superman who raises tons of cash for charity. And I think we'll touch on that a bit as well. Ross, as you can see from his work, has worked with a ton of really exciting brands, from BBC and Ministry of Sound, Sony, Sainsbury's, Oxfam, as well as musical talents, Mumford and Sons, Lana Del Rey, Bat for Lashes, Shigor Roche, and tons more that I could spend the next 5 minutes rattling off. So the way this session is going to work is we're going to encourage you guys to ask questions. Those questions can be sent to me privately in chat. So you'll see a drop down. You just need to find my name, Matt, or Matt Dowling. Send me the question and we will do our best to squeeze everybody in. We have plenty of other bits and pieces coming up on our Freelance Academy site. So check out freelancerclub.net and take a look at the Academy to see what else we've got going on. And I would just ask everybody to mute themselves. If I do call on you to explain a question later, just remember to unmute. So Ross, thanks for being here. Great to have you. I think it would be a good place for us to start, just giving everybody a sense of your path into the career. And I think what I'm really interested in is your journey from where you've come from into Studio Juice.
Okay, well, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. Hope everyone's safe and well at home. Yeah, I grew up on a farm, which was fantastic. But I think one thing that taught me was hard work. So that was a good lesson to learn as a young boy. And just became pretty obsessed with architecture and form, I guess. Very lucky to have a classic good art teacher that was like, if you thought about looking at, more of a design-led thing, and I didn't really know what typography was, etc., in terms of the craft behind it. And then yeah, that was it. So I was really lucky that I knew what I wanted to do from pretty much, 13, 14 years old. Design, did the classic, went through college, went to university, went to Cheltenham Art School. And whilst I was there, I was lucky to go over and start interning in Los Angeles for a design studio, working on movie key art in Hollywood, which was a very random experience. But, started to introduce, I guess, sort of what's the right term, sort of conceptual thinking in a world that they were obsessed with every effect in Photoshop. So I did relatively well there. And, at sort of 18, I was sort of co-creative director of a studio for 6 months. Unfortunately, had a serious car accident. Wanted to come home and see my parents. And I worked for a little bit with Brian Eagle. He's a creative director, won a lot of DNA awards, like fantastic gentleman, and learned an insane amount. And from there it was just like, I'm going to start a studio. Rang up who worked at Ted Baker at the time and was like, just give me a job of any kind, and then I'm a studio and I've got a client. And it went from there, particularly. So that's a quick intro.
What about the diversity of your portfolio at the moment? So not just in terms of the campaign work, but there seems to be a clear love affair with music. How does that tie into it? Is that a passion that crept in, or something that was an opportunistic situation?
I think I'm a very rare designer that wanted to design album covers, you see. So no, I had shared those aspirations. From a young age. Like my dad's like literally a roller, so every bit of vinyl they've ever released, and yeah, so I spent a lot of time looking and listening to those. So I had a massive passion and affinity with music. And in the early days, that was all we wanted to do. We were sort of younger and a bit more carefree. And we just really went at like designing some, 7-inch vinyl, logos for bands, all the classics. But I feel like the music industry at the time was in a bit of state of disrepair. Like Napster was at its realm, people were really realizing that, there was digital, realm to be had. And yeah, it just really grew as a business. It became a feasible route as well as a passion. And I think as well, we sort of worked really hard in those early days to create, cross-channel campaigns. There was in the old record labels, there was A&R and there was a digital department, and they wouldn't speak. And a lot of times we would be like, how about if we made the website look like the album campaign? They were like, whoa, this is a big step. We learned a lot of I talk a lot about storytelling and narrative. Again, aesthetic is one thing, but the story to a consumer is key. And we learned a lot of that in music. And through that time, we picked up some really great clients that we still work with today. And it's just a fun thing to design for, the formats have all changed, but, I was designing some vinyl yesterday, and it's just fun. It works well for the business as well. Like, people like to talk about music, and, it's where I cut my teeth as a director. So I started becoming a director about 4 years ago, and learned a lot through doing music videos,
And would you collaborate with the artists when it comes to putting together work, or is it you and you alone with a brief?
Everyone's different. So every act, every label, there's like different levels. Some artists I've never met, never spoken to, never had an email from, never had a brief from, through to some literally come in the studio and sit there and collaborate. I think more and more now, there is access. Like, it's pretty hard to design or be creative for someone or something without having a conversation. It gets lost in translation, and I'm grateful that I think we're starting to learn about that particularly. I think it's different levels, but again, I think I think particularly with across this thread, it's like relationships. We're not the best studio in the world, and I'm sure some of the people on this call are not the best freelancers, but if you can build a relationship with someone, then you can deliver great work. And that's really part of music, is you're representing a massive body of work. And I think that's a very different thing to a branding project. You're representing someone's, without sounding too deep, soul. In a lot of these cases, they put everything into it. So if they want a kangaroo, then they get a kangaroo to a certain extent. It depends there's always a happy medium.
Does the music itself, the construction of the album, influence you? Is that a starting point?
Without a doubt. Weirdly, we seem to go through trends of music. So we've had folk trends, we've had drum and bass trends, we've had that don't necessarily shift with the industry, but you always start with listening it. I have to listen to it over and over and over, even if I don't like it. I think the tempo of music is definitely, and I think that's interesting when you go in different studios, how music is in the studio. Headphones, no headphones, who curates the list, it's fascinating of how it affects your work. And I don't think I could ever tell you what I've listened to in a day, but I need music there in some form. But then in the studio, you can't have too much music because you need to talk. So, each one. But so yeah, in terms of designing, 100%, got to listen to it. Again, lucky to have relationships where they share some early works with you, or go in the studio. A few of the acts we work with, you go in the studio and listen to it being made, and sort of ask them questions of what the lyrics mean, why they're recording it like that, and go on a journey, which I feel hugely privileged to be part of, because I am terrible at any music instrument.
Sean, you've got a question that I think links to this nicely.
Yeah, hi Ross. Thanks for doing this. It's a very interesting subject for me. You might remember a very iconic album company called Hypnosis. Hello?
I'd do a little bit of that. Hello?
You hear me, Ross?
Hey, Sean. Can you repeat that? I missed
Yeah,
it.
sorry. There's a bit of it's a bit jumping around the connection. You might remember a very small company called Hypnosis.
Yeah, yeah.
They, I mean, what's happened to the music industry and design? Like, I mean, we're not going to go back to the golden years, but is there a company that's well known today for design? Like its approach, its philosophy, everything about it is devoted to producing great work for bands. Does that exist anymore?
Yeah, there's a few. There's like non-format, a great. You can really testing me now. There's few, but they do tend to cross over with fashion and branding occasionally. There's some fantastic individuals that are, solo sort of designers that are sort of small. I class as a studio. I'm sure they use freelancers a lot, but you've got like Matt DeJong, Steve Stacey, doing some great work.
Is there a Barney Bubbles out there today, or are you him?
No, I'm definitely not him. No, I think it's hard to see hard to sort of get that sort of soul management. Like, I worked with Mumford and Sons for over a decade, so I'm extremely, I have such a relationship with them as a band, and so again, it extends across all things. Design literally anything you can imagine. But that's lost a little bit, I guess. Bands tend to move, per album, and they move record companies a lot. But I think the creativity's there. You just have to dig for who did it, maybe a little harder. And there's some incredible people doing some incredible work. But I think like the Stylo Rouges and those guys are, the heyday of that is definitely not around. But in music there is still work to be done. Like if you think of the output, it's like vaster in a campaign. Quite like we're talking about cross-platform. Like the concept has to work across, socially. Like we just did a meeting this morning of starting like 6 months out on an album campaign with like some teasers on Instagram. So it's a very different process that will still end up on a 12-inch, but that's not the be-all and end-all, I guess.
Well, it's heartening to hear, but I think everything's got very siloed these days. Well, I'm from the ad world, so I started off in the music industry and took the King's Shilling and went into advertising many years ago. So I would like to go back, but invariably the bands don't have money. They love the work, but they just it's the usual piecemeal approach. Hence my question about Hypnosis. Like if I got to really dig and find companies and people out there who are passionately committed to doing good things,
Yeah, 100%. And like I say, there's a group, there's a London that do that. Like I say, take a look at those two guys. That they do a lot of music, and I know there's some others. So yeah, I think it's possible to make a living for sure. Again, it depends what your desires are. Everyone that works on it is hugely passionate and don't necessarily do it just for the financial gain, but you have to make a living, so it's hand in hand. But like I say, there's up until COVID, I guess there's a lot of music festivals that require a lot of design. Merch is key more than ever. Like, we do a lot of special editions, collector's editions, so formats of albums that cost £50, that that contain unseen content. Did the best of Keen a few years ago and got like 12 boxes of just that. Each band member just gave us all their stuff, and we just took it to the studio and took pictures and photocopied it and just built a 150-page book. Those sort of things have definitely become much more prominent, and revenue for the the music industry. The record labels have to make money. you know. So it's just a different route. So, you know, I think it's one of those, it's a passion project, to go after it. And like I say, you know, you can pick up like several bits of work and, you know, mix it with other things, make it work.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, Ross. There's lots of other questions coming through, so
yeah. Someone's just put Big Active, who are fantastic. They are, I'd say, yeah, they're thanks. Yeah, they definitely like lead the way for years, and someone that we look up to. So definitely check them out.
Thanks, Sean. Ross, just in terms of the conceptualization of a campaign, if we can take it back to a more general client, could you walk us through your process when it comes to the moment when you land a client? What are the early steps you have to take to start putting the creative process together?
Definitely is like listening and asking questions before, you know, again, I think it's loosened it more than ever now. Like there's no true formula, but getting like FaceTime with founders or creators. A lot of people we work at the moment. So we just done a rebrand of Moju, who a health shop company, and Karma Cola, and spending time with their founders is key. Like hearing like why they're doing it, how they're doing it, because ultimately that needs to translate to the consumer. So initial bit is like, yeah, have a good chat and build a relationship, you know, with them, so that you can tell them something's not a good idea and something's a good idea from the off. And then it's sort of, you know, classic research. You know, I'm not a massive fan of going through like pages of Pinterest as a starting point. I think it's more identifying what that is, that end narrative. What's the end story that the consumer needs to pick up in 2 or 3 seconds in a supermarket? You identify that before you go anywhere near aesthetic. And then you start to, you know, you build on those narratives. In the studio, we do a minimum of 3 routes. So we tend to be like, have one that is classic to the brief, one that steps away and like challenges it slightly, and then one that just is, you know, off the wall. I find in most creative projects is that if you go, you know, the client will come and be like, oh, this is what I want. I know that's what I want. And you go through 3 months of design, and then they get there and they're like, yeah, but maybe we could, you know, maybe we should just done a complete rebrand. So if you show them the essence of each step in early on, you save coming back around, the roundabout or whatever you want to call it, you know. But yeah, initial stages definitely is listen, learn, question, and get things down on paper as well. Don't procrastinate. It's the worst thing in design, as we all do, and I do it. Is like, you know, you get into it and make a mess, make some noise, chat a lot. We're lucky in a studio that we have people working little teams and get going.
And just on that point, so I think everyone can relate to the idea of chatting with a client when they have a creative idea. They've come to a creative for that, and there seems to be friction at times where you might need to input your ability and say softly or otherwise, listen, this is an absolute nonsense. You don't know what you're talking about. How do you balance that, keeping a client sweet whilst telling them their idea is ridiculous?
Honesty, you know, I think just telling someone that it's not a good idea is a good starting point in a very polite manner. Like, and you get that they might not like it, but I think you need to frame it and go, this isn't a good idea because of the 3 things that you know it's not a good idea. Can we take anything that's good about that idea and move over here and take it in a different direction? It's, you know, you're always walking a line that they are paying you for a service. So like I say, if someone, I think music is slightly different because, again, I feel different in the way that relationship works. But in terms of like a conversation, and to be honest, we're so lucky with our clients. Like, again, if you look at our client list, you know, we don't have a bad client. We don't have that client that you couldn't ring up and go, it's not a good idea. Really, it's generally everyone, you know, understands what we do and why we do it, and most of the time listen. And I think with, you know, collaboration is key. you know, we're not always right. They've built the business. They know what product they've got, and you know, we're there to sort of steer and help and deliver that. But ultimately, like, if you've been working tightly together, you don't need to have too many big awkward conversations. But also just tell them a shit idea is a shit idea. So
I'm going to jump into Andrea, if you'd like to ask Ross your question.
Hi there, can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
yeah, hi.
Awesome. I'm sorry I'm incognito and you get no video, but I've literally come down, back from a cycle ride, so you really don't want to see my face right now. Thank you so much for this webinar. I mean, it's really useful, and I've just literally come across it through the website, the Freelancer. So yeah, really great opportunities. I've started a photography studio with my partner about 4 years ago, and between us, we're down in Kent, and we've got a really, you know, great photography studio. We've been doing mostly, you know, individual photography, but also some commercial stuff as well. He likes to say that I shoot people and he shoots objects, because that's how we roll. And we've kind of had some work with local businesses where, you know, in Kent where we are, there's only so much that businesses will be willing to go in terms of creativity, and you see all of the same sort of boring photos and ads and really badly shot bottles of products and stuff. And so we're really kind of trying to get to the next level, and we, you know, I believe we have the quality and the creativity and everything we need, but I'm really at a loss whenever I try to think about how do we get to, you know, these big projects and big clients and big studios. And do you have any sort of advice for us in terms of what we should do next?
Well, I hope you enjoyed your bike ride, firstly. And well done on starting a studio. It's not easy, but fun equally. Yeah, I think it's building relationships and having, you know, examples of the right work. You know, like, you can get some products that you really love and shoot them how you want to shoot them, and then go to the relevant agencies and go, look, here, this is what we do. We work with a company called Handover Agency, and they're in Manchester or Birmingham way, and you know, people post the products and they shoot it, and then you do it virtually at the moment during lockdown, and they've done some great work at the moment. And yeah, I think you know, getting up into London and you know, asking the right, you know, people to come and see, you know, have you got time to see me at some point? You know, you have to do a bit of hustle. We were just talking about it before the call. You know, I think especially after this, it's COVID. It's gonna, you know, everyone's gonna have to hustle. I know, particularly freelancers are having a tough time, but you know, Studio Juice is having a, you know, across the board, everyone's is suffering. So I just said, you know, do some work that is relevant. Like, it's quite hard to look at a studio that you've never worked with before, and if they don't have examples of the kind of work that you want to do, it's quite hard to take a leap of faith. So like, again, go and buy that product, shoot it how you want to shoot it, and start to build that, you know, a commercial portfolio off that. You know, the best way, and again, relationships is everything. So yeah, build those conversations up with the people that you know that you can get the work from.
That's really great and helpful, thank you. So I mean, your approach should be just literally start contacting agencies, because I think we don't lack portfolio. I mean, my partner's been shooting for you know, product stuff just for his pleasure and enjoyment, and he's got to a level that I think it literally beats the quality that I've seen in imagery in a lot of like published ads in you know, advertising magazines and everything. So it's literally contacting agencies. And what would you say printed stuff does better in terms of contacting, or, you know, is an initial like email inquiry and portfolio still?
Just a friendly email. I try to reply to most things, but a friendly email with not a massive PDF attached, or, you know, Instagram, you know, traditional. Well, I was going to say traditional. They're not. They are traditional now, but you know, again, like, putting your work out there so people can see it and love it is the best way. And then, you know, having those conversations is key.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Andrea. Ross, talking of bringing in freelancers for projects, what's your process when it comes to pulling together teams, whether it's bringing in a shoot team to create content or be it video or design? Tell us a little bit about how you go out and find and source teams.
So generally, like, I've got a folder of portfolios that I love, like designers, directors, editors, on my desktop, that, people that I'd like to work with that have, sent me off the cuff, try to meet people as I go. And there's a studio, some of the other designers might meet. And yeah, I like to build a relationship with freelancers and come back more than once. So that, again, you have the rapport, the studio, the way that we work. It just, again, for me, it feels a less impersonal. And then when we're looking at a specific project, it will be like, discipline, and then, sort of build out the team and whatever project. So if it's, more illustration led, then I know that James would be great, or, Sarah. And, we've got sort of 8 to 10 people that we sort of use regularly, but like I say, we're always on the lookout to meet with people, or again, just a friendly email that with your portfolio attached does get looked at. Can't say that for every agency, but I'm pretty sure that most people will want a pool of talented freelancers, especially in coming up. I think it will be, I know it's hard now, but I think freelance market will grow and boom again, because smaller teams will be really specific in their needs for the creative.
So just on the aesthetic, if you've got a network of around 10 in your talent pool, do you find that starts to shape how your portfolio looks as a studio? Or would you be tempted to try and expand that?
No, I think we've got...
Sorry, go on, Ross.
We've never had we don't have a studio aesthetic per se. We're it's, there's some colour, the fact colour connection, and the music tends to be, trended down one line, but that's more, I think, the style of that. And some of the work that we don't put out on to the public, we tend to adapt to what we feel is appropriate for the, I think you've got two sides. You deliver to the appropriate, the delivery of what the client's asking for, and fits the project, or you're a studio that has people buy for the style. So I think there's two lines, and we're definitely in the nature. So always looking for new styles and approaches, for sure. I think it's interesting. Again, I think that's what freelance work does work really well, is getting some different people in the studio with different process. There is no true process. If it's too rigid, I think you lose the creative nature of what you're trying to do, and especially an agency our side. So when you bring in a freelancer, I'm kind of excited to have a different talent, a different voice, a different face, and 9 times out of 10 that works really well.
So on that point, Denise, who in true freelance style is hustling on a phone call and asked me to pass this on to you, how much freedom would a freelancer have in the space? So I assume it starts with a conversation about the brief. How much rope do you give each creative on a project?
Try to give it as much as possible. I don't really buy that. I guess, or you should be really clear if you're getting a freelancer in to literally pump out 12 versions of something, you should brief that into the person that's coming in, so that when they turn up, they're not a little disgruntled that they're an art director and they're doing that. I think that's always a misconception in freelancing, on both sides. The communication before you come in and be this is what you're going to be working on. And I think recruitment agencies have definitely got better at that as well, so that people don't get kicked out at lunchtime, or or someone's up frustrated. But again, the talent of that person as much as possible. You know, again, we've had some really great people. So you come in and they get, I'd say they get a pretty good run. And it depends if it's a day's work or a week's work, because the dynamic is very different and where you are in the project. But definitely try and make it, you know, almost treat them as part of the team, because I think you're just going to do better work that way. Whereas if you're put in a corner and told to do 12 outputs, again, that's fine. That's kind of, you know, part of it. But if that's what you knew you were walking into, then I think your mindset would be like, great, I know that's what I've got to do. And then that's the task. So yeah, try and utilize talent as much as possible.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We do a lot of work with companies to try and help them understand the freelance psyche and the dynamic between them and how they should treat freelancers. A lot of the time, I think freelancers complain that they're brought in, feel very mechanical, stuck in a corner, do a job and go home. Yeah. It sounds like you guys try and integrate the freelancer and have them invest into your brand and into the project. Yeah,
definitely. I think it works for both sides. Like I say, you know, sometimes we do get someone in to do something that's really like menial, but like we always they are briefed ahead of the coming into. I think it's more interesting for both sides that way, and I think, like you say, that everyone's human. But you know, I've had freelancers come in that expect an easy ride to a certain extent and haven't showed the utmost of respect. That's very minimal, so it's not a criticism of, you know, you have that with employees sometimes, and you know, that's just the nature of it. But you know, again, I think when you go into a studio, and I'm sure everyone is, you know, and not telling anyone to suck eggs, is like, you know, be friendly, ask questions, and show some enthusiasm. Because again, if you're paying £400 a day for someone, you know, you don't want half of what you'd get with someone in your own team as well.
We've got a question from Tom that sort of relates to this, and you touched on it a second ago. What do you think is on the horizon for freelancers? Do you think there'll be a boom, is what I think he's asking, and a spike in new freelancers entering the market?
I think we're not going to see a boom in any industry, if I'm totally honest, in the next 12 to 24 months. I do think that, you know, it's not all doom and gloom for freelancers. I think there'll be a lot of opportunities. I think there'll be brands that are going to switch to freelancers over agencies. I think people are going to want to do more direct to consumer work. I think, you know, I think there will, as with everything, it's going to return to normal, I'd say. You know, when that is, it depends on the situation. But, you know, economics say equally, you know, will you get the same day rate? I very much doubt it. For all of the that, you know, do have a reasonable day rate, I think, you know, it's going to be hard for an agency to fulfill those fees right now. Like, you know, with Studio Juice, again, you're just naturally, your reduction of work and fees. So that's going to, again, gets translated on down the line. But yeah, I do think, I don't think it's all doom and gloom. We're all going to have to hustle and go and get it and go and find it and, you know, be positive about it. You know, everyone's in the same situation. But I think there's an interesting trend that, you know, communications that includes graphic design and branding and advertising are going to be talking more often and more direct to consumers than ever. But, you know, out of home, can't see that booming again for a while. If maybe it won't, you know. I think maybe this is an earlier switch in those formats, you know. So yeah, I think the horizon's okay.
We're seeing a trend of soft skills being in high demand as much as the kind of core service that artists are providing. So the ability to communicate well or act within a team. Would you guys echo that sentiment? Do you think that's the way we're moving in terms of what a freelancer brings to the party? So
start that again, please.
So the soft skills that freelancers bring, communication, working with a team.
Massively. It's such you know, I don't suffer egos too well, even though I've got a massive one. I'm just joking, just in case you didn't get that. you know, coming into a studio and being bullshit or not asking questions or not fitting in, it just doesn't float. It never results in good work, you know. And if you're going to have to work a bit harder if you're a freelancer, because you've got to build a relationship in probably 15 minutes rather than like weeks and days that you do if you work somewhere. But that should be understanding from the client as well. Like, again, when you talk to freelancers that come in, I'm hugely frustrated. They're expected to do miracles without a brief, you know. And, you know, it is hard when someone comes in, you know, because you've got a freelancer in because you need them to do more work, but you've got to find time to juggle it. So I think, you know, asking questions and listening are as important as the talent of the doing. So soft skills as well, you know, and being nice, you know. Like, we've got freelancers that still go for beers with like 8 years later, because they were such legends when they came in, and you know, there's friendships being made, and you know, I'm sure again everyone that's freelance on this call is equally that like built those. But just to say, it goes so far, you know. And freelancers, you know, at the moment I'm getting a lot of emails just being like, hey, is there anything going on, and like trying to reply and having a chat and just, you know, trying to understand, you know, we're all in it together. So, you know, build up those rapport via those skills, and you know, the designing bit should always be the easy bit.
Yeah, there's a question come in from Chamini. I'm going to sort of translate a little bit into the context of what we're talking about. She's asking about the fashion industry, and going forwards, if you can't provide your service virtually, what do you think is going to happen? So perhaps we can touch on that in a more broader sense.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to have to adapt. Like, I don't think there's an answer for everything. We've got fashion, you know, talking about doing remote shoots at the moment, and you know, again, if it's true that they're going to open up, that you can go outside, then everyone's going to be shooting outside, right? You know, we're talking about using our music venues as you know, studios to shoot in, where we can hold people. You know, there's people are going to be more innovative than ever. So, you know, I do think it will pick up. And again, like styling, like live sessions, and you know, these things that we all engaging with now would still need to happen. You know, and I think, yeah, I think that, you know, design generally, like, you can, most of the time you can work from home, and when you go into an environment where you need to collaborate, you know, there just be more production element. You know, again, we're talking about doing some shoots where you have holding zones for different like groups, and we've been to the shops lately, there's tape on the floor. It'll be those kinds of things, and you know, you won't go near anyone, but you'll come in and do your bit of your project, and then you'll leave. Or, you know, I think that will kick off pretty quick once we're allowed to. I guess at the moment it's so hard to manufacture any ways around it when you're at home. So yeah, I think it's going to come back, and relatively quickly. What that means financially, like the size of those shoots, I imagine will drop quite vastly. Someone's going to have to, again, hustle for their quarter. But I think it will happen. But I think it's interesting in terms of the fashion industry. Probably a conversation for another call, but you know, the future of that with you know, the sustainability. Yeah, we got fashion clients, and you know, just before this happened, I think there was a real sort of awareness of that, and again, like how the shoots are based around that now. I think that will change as well.
Yeah, we touched a bit on this prior to the call, but we were speaking a lot about unpaid work, and the thing that I've been seeing, the idea of volunteering time now for companies. So people are putting different spins on it. Fashion industry is being fairly rife. I mean, we do a huge amount of work in it, and you know, we're always on the pushback because of the glamour and the excitement of it. They're able to leverage that. Give us your general views on it. And now we move into this new space where I agree, I think we're going to see a drop down in budgets, and it means top end people are going to have to move down a rung as well. How do you see this going?
Free work?
Yeah.
No, just don't do it. Yeah, it's such a, well, so I'll rephrase that. I think free work is just a real problem within the industry. As a whole, it devalues it. I think there's a wider conversation on the value of creativity and like where do you draw the line? But generally, people, it never ends in a good space if it's free per se. I do a lot of charitable work, but I sort of say that I donate my time. And a lot of the time you send an invoice that says that it was pro bono, or you were donating your time. It should be logged and valued. You should be entitled, titled with that you're donating. Like, I don't see it as any different as going online and donating £200 if you're doing it for that cause. In terms of helping a business, I think there's whether you do it for equity or whether you do it for product or whether you stage payments. Okay, if you get to this size, I get paid £2,000. It should never be like, I need free work, I'm just starting, or there's never going to be a value in what you're doing. And also there's going to get to a point where they want so many changes and you're up at 2 o'clock in the morning that you're just going to lose love for the project. It just doesn't sit well. Equally, I have an ethos, like I say yes to things. So, and it's taken me to some incredible places and like work-wise and beyond. And so, yes, I'll do the project, but I want 1% of the business, or I want to be paid in full in 2 years' time if you this margin, or I just think there's like such a way of positioning it, and once you do it for free, it just doesn't. It never returns. There's never a return to it.
You do a fair bit of charity work. Do you pick and choose based on what you connect with?
Yes and no. Like, again, it's sort of through saying yes and doing that work, opportunities arise naturally, and then doing the challenges, you meet people. Again, I sort of 13 years been fundraising and doing different things, so they naturally crop up. But I do a hell of a lot of work with War Child at the moment for several reasons. Very passionate about them. I think they do incredible work, and that's one. But then, working. I just had a call just before this to work with a guy called Ed Jackson, who you should look up and read his story. And he's got a charity called Millimeters to Mountains, and we're going to do some work together. I'm going to donate my time to him. No, but again, we've hit off on a good mark. He values it. He understands what's involved, and it's exciting to be involved in those projects. And I think I'll crack into that now. But as freelancers now, charities are in a very vulnerable place, but they need to communicate more than ever. So it's a great time to contact a charity and donate some time. And again, I think that going back to that free element is like, if you do a bit of free work, make sure that you don't get, the constraints of your creativity is like, you don't want to go and do it for free. You do it for free to make your portfolio better, but you don't want to end up them dictating every move. So, don't give them 20 changes so you end up with something you don't love. But, I think it's a really good time to be involved in that sense of the market or the industry.
Agreed, yeah. Ed Jackson's the chap who walks up and down stairs, equivalent to Everest. Is that the same guy?
Yeah. So I did Elbrus, and he rang me up and he was like, "This is awesome. Can I copy it?" I was like, "Of course." So yeah, he climbed the height of Everest in his house the other day. He's a paraplegic. He's a complete legend. Loves life, and really positive outlook. And he's raising money to build a spinal unit in Nepal. He's already climbed a few mountains. He's an absolute nutter.
I like it. Well, look, I think that's the perfect place for us to wrap it up. Ross, I just want to say a massive thanks. I mean, the love coming through on chat is echoed by me. I think really interesting, really insightful. So thanks a million for your time. I urge everybody to go check out everything that you're about. And when Omeara music venue opens up again, get in there, go and see it, go and support it. I think the types of things that I know that you're doing are key to the creative industry, and something that I'm going to encourage as many people as possible to go and get behind. So thanks a million, lots of love, and stay safe.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having me, and definitely go and check Omeara out. There's a crowdfunding page on there at the moment to try and save the venue. It's one thing we didn't get onto, but it's another world. But I really appreciate the time, and yeah, just keep positive, everyone, because I don't think that's the main thing, and we get through it and get to the other side. So stay safe.
Thanks, Ross. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Cheers.
you.